Welcome to the One Church podcast, a podcast that will encourage you in your faith, inspire you in your Christian life, and equip you to journey boldly with Jesus. We're glad you're here and we hope you enjoy.
Hello and welcome to the One Church podcast. We are here today talking about evangelism. I've got guests Rosie and Joe with us today. Hello guys.
Hello.
And we are going to be looking at how Rosie evangelised to Joe and how that whole experience went, how it started all the way through to the end. So that's what our conversation is going to be. And so just before we start, can you tell us maybe a little bit about yourself? Well, you both grew up in church, is that correct?
Yeah, so I grew up in church. I kind of went along, as you do with your mum on Sunday. But I would say I probably wasn't really that interested until a few years ago when I made my own decision to kind of come to church on my own and get into it.
How old were you, would you reckon?
It was probably only 2 years ago, so 22.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I grew up in the church, in the Roman Catholic Church. Okay. From what I remember of it, I found it quite boring and I didn't really enjoy it that much, but decided at quite a young age, I must have been 10, 11, something like that, to stop going. And for most of what I remember, I've been agnostic or atheist.
Okay. So you say 10 or 11, you just stopped going?
Yeah, I just decided as a young kid. I mean, I can't really remember what age it was, to be honest, but I know it was young.
Yeah.
It was before I was a teenager.
And your parents were like, okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Just made that decision.
Let me make that decision myself. Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay. Right. So we are looking at how, basically, Joe, how you've basically given your life to Jesus and that experience and where it came from beginning to end. So my question for you, Rosie, is how did you start speaking to Joe about Jesus? Were you intentionally speaking to Joe about it? Were you speaking to others about it and Joe jumped in? Or really just tell us how those conversations started.
So it was just really casual. We were spending a lot of time together because we were working together. And then
completely forgot to mention that you both work together.
Yes. Yeah. So we were in a work car one day and I had only just joined the team and one of our other colleagues said to me, I've never heard you swear. Are you a Christian? And no one knew at that point and I hadn't said anything. And I was like, oh, yeah, I am. But it's kind of crazy that that's how he realised. And Joe was in the car as well. And then that was kind of the end of the conversation there. But Joe was really interested in it from that point. So he was kind of asking me a lot of questions about it. And then probably a few weeks later, I was reading a Christian book in the work car again. And Joe was interested. So we spoke about that. And then I gave Joe the book after I'd finished it. And then after he read it, he had a lot of questions about it. And I was kind of put off because he had a lot of really deep theological, philosophical questions. And I was like, I don't know anything. So I was kind of whoa. And that was kind of it for a while. We didn't speak about it too much after that. And then probably a year later, we'd mentioned it casually between those points. But a year later, we kind of started speaking about it a lot again. I don't even remember how or what happened, but yeah, I think I just mentioned church and then we were just chatting about it. And then Joe messaged me a few weeks later saying thank you for mentioning church, I've been thinking about it a lot, I've been praying and all this. And I was like, oh, sick. Do you want to come to church? So yeah, I just invited him and that was it.
Amazing. I like that you think that obviously there's clearly, if you work for Border Force, you're going to have a bad language is a key part of the role. So obviously it'd be interesting to hear your side from that, Joe, in terms of your side of the story.
So, I mean, yeah, like Rosie said, I think to me, Rosie stood out in the workplace. And I think it's not just the workplace, it's the world today. I think she stood out to me because, like you say, she didn't swear. She was kind. She had a peace around her. And that made me curious when I found out she was a Christian. I think that's why she is how she is, because she's a Christian. And yeah, I remember I used to swear a lot. A lot. And the more I spoke to Rosie, the more it encouraged me to look into the Bible, start reading the Bible, start thinking about church. And the more I did that, the less I started doing things like swearing. And I started thinking about the way I'm acting. And even though I wasn't a believer at that point, I just started to transform my life in little ways that I was noticing was making a big difference to me. And then when Rosie asked me to come to church, I said yes, and that was the real turning point. I think that's the biggest thing, was actually being asked. I don't think I would have come if I hadn't been asked.
So one of the parts of the story I really liked that is, for most people, when they think of evangelism, is they think the starting point is inviting people to church. But what's good about your story and what you just said there is it actually happened way before that, just by Rosie's character. And actually you saw God shine out of her just by her choices of your lifestyle and how you decided to behave and act and what you read, and how those things actually had an impact even before. It's actually the thing that made you want to go to church.
Yeah, and it encouraged me to change how I was acting as well.
Amazing. That's really good. So just out of interest, what were the questions that you asked? Can you remember?
The book was about a guy who was a criminal and then turned to Jesus, and then he basically he gave his life to God, and Joe was saying, that's great, but what about all of the people that he's hurt in his past? Like, why does God forgive? And like, why is that okay? And I actually know the answer now is grace. And I think I said that, but you didn't really
Didn't understand.
Yeah, you didn't understand.
Yeah. or even to say, loads of people just don't accept it. They're just that doesn't feel like an answer.
It's almost like it's not a good enough answer sometimes.
Because grasping it is something big, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was quizzing you quite a lot about difficult questions like that. Yeah. But the interesting thing looking back is that it wasn't the answers to those questions that actually helped me come to church. It was Rosie in the way she was, and her actually asking me, taking that step to ask me. I didn't need to know the answers in the end. Yeah, I can find them out later.
We've found that through your whole kind of thing, coming to church. There's been a lot of really big questions and stuff like that, which I don't know the answer to. And I think with Alpha as well, people don't necessarily know, and that's okay. And for you to accept that, it took accepting Jesus into your life and not knowing the big answers, wasn't it, in the end? Yeah.
Yeah, there's that guy on one of the Alpha videos, the science, I can't remember his name, but he's a high-end, he worked out black matter and stuff, yeah. And he was I came to conclusion about God and I didn't even look at the evidence that. So it sounds like you'd come to a place where you'd seen something and wanted to know more. So, right, we get to the position now, you've asked to go to church, you're yes, great, come along. How do you go from that position to then going to Alpha? How did that journey go?
I actually signed him up while he wasn't here 1 week, so there wasn't really a choice in that. So I just messaged him. I said, we're running an Alpha course at church. I've signed you up. I'll come with you. That's it.
And you were happy with that?
Yeah, that was the first time I heard of Alpha, but I was happy with that. Yeah, I think if I had been asked if I wanted to go, I would have said yes anyway. But I'm glad you signed me up. Yeah, I'm really glad you signed me up.
Why were you so confident just to sign up? Did you feel anything, or did you just go
I don't know. I just did it. I don't really know.
That's really good. Yeah. That's really cool. Okay, and then so we've now at the point. I feel like it's really nice is that Alpha. Obviously, I helped run that with Sean Morrison with you guys. Your experience through Alpha, because obviously at this moment in time you're not a Christian, you don't believe, right?
Yeah, so starting Alpha, I was praying, I was reading the Bible, and I was coming to church. And in my mind, that was me being a Christian. I was making changes in my life. So it was a net positive, but I wasn't getting to the point where I was having a relationship with God, and I didn't understand really what a relationship with God was, and I didn't have that faith, really. I was just acting as if I did in the world. So I was living it out like I was, but inside I knew I wasn't.
Sorry, just going slightly back. Why did you sign up, Joe, for Alpha? What is it about Alpha that made you think, and you also put yourself in that, why did you do that?
Yeah, so I think because it has a lot of evidence and stuff like that, and that's what Joe was interested in at the time, like the why. I just thought it would be really helpful, and I feel like we had maybe spoken about it briefly before, but like never that deeply. But yeah, I just thought that Joe would like it, and then I went with to support, I guess, because I'd done it before, so I just thought it would be nice to do it with a friend.
I think like what I really like about this, what you just mentioned there, is that you know Joe enough now, because actually you go and Joe's asking these questions, and I think Joe wants to know evidence, and I think the fact is you've made decisions by signing up for Alpha against your will. Signing up for Alpha, that you've actually gone, but I know this is something that he really wants, and I think that's a really important thing, is that we know when we were talking to friends or inviting friends to church or anything, like actually, why are we doing those things? Are we doing it to tick a box? But you're clearly making decisions that you think, I'm making this decision because I know it's going to benefit Joe in terms of knowing God more. And I think it was really lovely that you came along to support him as well, because I think I've signed you up and you're on your own. Good luck. See you on the other side. I think it's nice that you've also joined him and helped him with that. Alpha, how did you find that experience?
It was good. It was really good. And just like you said, it started to answer some of those questions. There was some stuff in Alpha that I think I had already started looking into. So it was just sort of confirming some of the things that I was already looking into myself, but then also adding layers on top of that, giving me some like small bits of answers, but kind of leaving me still a bit more curious every session. So I don't think I left each session feeling like I knew everything, but I don't think that's the point. I think I left each session being more curious, wanting to come back the next week, wanting to ask more questions, and ultimately, by the end of it, finding Christ. And that was the last session, the Holy Spirit session, where it really changed me, and it was quite emotional. It was quite surprising. Yeah, I didn't expect it to come like that. I was kind of waiting and being like, "Okay, God, where are you? Why aren't you in my life yet? I'm doing all these things and I'm following what people are telling me to do." And then all of a sudden, it hit me when I just surrendered. But if I hadn't have been invited, and if I hadn't have seen Rosie and seen how she acted in the world, I would have never got to that point.
So for people that are listening, from this experience, what would be something you would take away, or that you've learnt from this, that you would go, like, if you've got people listening that really have got friends or individuals that they know that they're like, I really want to tell them about Jesus, what would be your advice to them?
I think that it's okay to just mention it casually. You don't have to go in with any agenda. Like, you don't have to think like, oh, I really want this person to come to church and like blah blah blah. I just think if you talk to them about how Jesus transformed your life, or just mention even like as simple as mentioning going to church, they might be interested and then want to talk to you about it more. And the more you do that, the more confident you'll get with it.
Have you had has anyone else that you work with asked more questions based off that, just saying that you go to church?
Well, people ask me questions quite a lot. But it's not like a big deal now, because everyone knows that I'm Christian. So I don't see it as like a big thing. So
with people obviously now talking to you and you have quite a few conversations and it's become a bit normal, like, were you surprised by people's responses?
Yeah, I'd say people were way more interested than I thought they would be. And like, people asked me questions more than I even brought it up. Like, I was praying for God to like give me opportunities and stuff to talk to people, but people were coming to me, so it just made it way easier. And like, I was definitely nervous that people would be like, oh, you're this and that, like what you believe is a load of rubbish. And to be fair, that has happened a couple of times, but it doesn't really matter what they think at the end of the day, and you're still sowing seeds just by mentioning it. So
have you found that difficult at all when people have said like what you believe is rubbish or whatever?
Yeah, I'm like definitely a non-confrontational person, so I would kind of just like back away in that situation. But I think that's okay as well. Like, you don't have to like have an argument with anyone because they believe something different.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're like touched by what you've said in a way that's made them react like that. So
yeah, I think it's really important that we don't look over the fact that like you prayed for opportunities and then people came to you. So, you know, you maybe asked for opportunity to speak, but actually also God provided. And I think like it is so, I feel like I have so many examples of that. And I know loads of others, they've just gone, God, in the morning gone, God, let me have an opportunity today. And then God provides an opportunity. So if you're sitting there at home and thinking, what's the first thing I can do? Then pray. It's clearly the starting point. Right. So Joe, if for anybody who's listening, because I think for a lot of Christians, we have maybe like nerves, or I'm not sure how people are going to respond. As a person that's been through this experience, what would your response be to them of how you found that whole experience?
I just wanted to talk about it more, really. So I think don't be afraid to talk to people about it, because people are more interested than you'd think. Even from small experiences I've had since becoming a Christian, of talking to people have received it 99% of the time very, very well. And they've asked me questions and been interested. And I think that the fear of failure sometimes creeps in. Like I spoke to that person, but they didn't come to church, or they didn't seem to change their mind on anything. But actually, no one knows really what's going on inside their head. That little seed might just start, a chain reaction, and God's working in the background as well to draw that person in. So I believe that just a small conversation, even if it is just acknowledging that you're a Christian, makes a huge difference in someone's life.
Thank you guys so much for today and sharing your story. And I really hope for those that are listening at home that you can take something away from this. For me, there's a real importance about your character and how you carry yourself, and how much that can speak to people about God, that you pray for opportunities. We see from this experience that Rosie just prayed for opportunities, and here we have Joe who's given his life. And the third one is that actually this isn't always a quick journey. That actually it started with a conversation that took, and then over a year, an invitation to church, and then not even when Joe gets to church, as Rosie just abandoned him, she's followed him through, helped him, invited him to Alpha, continues to support him in his journey. And so I really hope for you guys that you can have these same experiences. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope you could join us next time. Thanks.